You mentioned the bootleg. And we'll talk about like the store and the show in just a little bit, because you brought it up. I got to bring it up because growing up, when I was watching Slobby's World and your show, you were such an advocator for bootleg and knowing the difference between real, fake, the what would you call it, the realistic fit, the Fugazi, something close.
Yeah, so you're running a whole gamut there of authentic. There's stuff like fan-made stuff, and there's bootleg, and then there's replica, and then there's just straight fake, And so there's this whole like sort of spectrum of stuff, especially when it comes to designer or with anything really.
Mm-hmm. And you were such a big advocate for that, where before I watched your show, I would hear fake and it was had such a negative connotation, or bootleg had such a negative connotation. But hearing you talk about it on the show, you also like celebrated it and loved it, and always like shown love to the designers and all the stuff outside of it, because you showed like a very clear distinction between fake and bootleg, and what was beautiful and what was a clear ripoff. So
right.
Magazine, can you explain to the people like your version of kind of what you believe in and what that kind of brings to the table for real, fake, all that bootleg?
Yeah, so I mean, I go way back in screen printing, which is a very DIY screen printing is a very like skate and punk rock practice at its roots, in a way. So I took screen printing class in 5th grade at summer camp, and I took the asterisk from the Red Hot Chili Pepper logo, and then I took the Stussy lettering, like the classic wide graffiti one, his old one, and I put Stussy with Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I made a shirt. Came home from camp, didn't really think anything of it, was riding my BMX around, and some college dude pulled over in his car, and he's like, "Hey bro, where'd you get that shirt, bro?" And I'm like, "Oh, I made it." And he's like, "Can I buy it from you?" And I'm like, "No." But that was an early moment for me when I realized that you can like, have fun with it. Number one, that you can make your own stuff and make it whatever you want. And there's something, we all had like a toy that we couldn't afford, so we like drew it out of cardboard, or like I made like bases, I made sewer stations for my Ninja Turtles made out of cardboard because I didn't own the sewer play set. So this was sort of like an early version of that, making clothes that I wanted or that I saw. And then, as I got older in my late teens, early 20s, I started looking on eBay and finding stuff like bootleg Nike hoodies and bootleg Jordan stuff. And I'm thinking, well, why is the Air Jordan, but it's printed on a Fruit of the Loom, So these were early ideas that I had. And I was like, damn, I'm kind of down, I don't know this is before the terminology or the vernacular was really there, but I was down, and it wasn't always because of the price, Some of these like bootleg Nike and old Flight stuff can be more expensive than some of the Nike pieces from the era. And same to be said with Gucci, Gucci went back and used all their bootleg designs for real designs years later because of people like Dapper Dan and myself. If anything, I was early on the I don't give a fuck train when it comes to wearing whatever you want, and especially being unique. Sometimes wearing one of one, custom, fan-made, bootleg, if you will, is a good way to be unique, especially back then, So vintage bootleg, I think, is the key. I love, the modern boot sort of era that we're in now. I love it. Love all the Marvel stuff, all the Marvel, modern boot rap tees. I could name dozens of homies that make great modern boot stuff, but I like the vintage bootleg stuff. And of course, bootleg Bart, it's something within the bootleg genre that became its own subgenre. So there's a lot to it, but there's an art to it also. And I love the look. I love the collectability. And I love that whole movement and that energy of like, I'm going to put a fucking Fred Flintstone Grateful Dead shirt and call it Grateful Fred. I have it right here on my wall, and it's Fred Flintstone on acid. Like, I love that where two things can meet, through a bootleg process.
Totally. No, I think that's really well said. And just kind of moving forward with the store, Generation Cool, you're talking about a lot of really dope old vintage pieces, and with your store, that's like basically exactly what you specialize in is 80s and like the super vintage stuff. Just aside from like maybe what's in round two, which is like maybe some higher end Supreme stuff or some different in terms of like what vintage streetwear is. So for the people at home, could you explain kind of what the store is and what your profession is in finding like the 80s vintage?
Yeah, the store is a direct reflection of me. I celebrate, and I come from the school of a true boutique, where a boutique is a smaller, very specialized store. So in Paris, I went and visited Europe a lot in my early 20s, and I visited very specialized boutiques. A woman who just makes all bows. A guy who sells all hats, a hat store, just ball caps, just hats, and that's so cool to me. So in the sense we're a true boutique, in the other sense we actually encompass a lot of different things because we're so like pop culture, collage, like blah, but we are 80s and 90s boutique at our core because that's my life. I was born in 1980, so the 80s was my childhood. In the 90s, I was more into like polo and Wu-Tang Clan and, selling drugs and that whole culture, like, East Coast rap, Mobb Deep, as opposed to like when some other people were getting into Pokemon and Power Rangers. The 90s for me is a little bit more of like my lifestyle now. But the store is a direct reflection of me in every way, and in that everything I sell is something that I was either into or collected, or something I wanted, or something my homies had, or something that I admire from those two eras, that I remember. So it's rare that I deal with anything that's not true to me. This is why we don't have a lot of Carhartt, double knees, because that doesn't mean anything to me. That has no connection to me, so it wouldn't really be in our store.
That's super